Did you know that something as simple as an egg, yes, that innocent little thing you've eaten for breakfast your entire life, could quietly be damaging your health after 60? It sounds impossible, even ridiculous. After all, we were told for decades that eggs are the perfect food. Full of protein, packed with nutrients, a staple on nearly every breakfast table in the world. And for the most part, that's true. But here's the part no one talks about. After a certain age, the very things that make eggs so powerful can also turn them into a hidden threat. Especially when combined with the one mistake nearly every senior makes without realizing it. This isn't about scare tactics. It's about clarity. It's about knowing what your body truly needs in this stage of life and what it can no longer handle in the same way. Because here's the truth, your body changes dramatically after 60. Your digestion, your heart, your cholesterol metabolism, your hormone regulation, they all begin to function differently. And that means foods that once helped you thrive might now be silently pushing you toward fatigue, inflammation, and even chronic disease. In this video, we're going to explore why eggs, yes, even just one a day, might no longer be as harmless as you think. We'll walk through 6 crucial truths, each of them tied to how your body works after 60. Some of them might shock you. Others might finally explain the subtle changes in your health you've been brushing off for years. Stay with me until the end. Because the last point? It's something most doctors never bring up, but once you understand it, you'll never look at your breakfast plate the same way again. Let's begin. Number 1, the cholesterol trap that gets worse with age. For decades, doctors argued back and forth about cholesterol in eggs. Some said it was dangerous. Others said it was fine. Eventually, the general advice shifted toward moderation. But what most people don't realize is this: after 60, your body becomes less efficient at processing cholesterol, and that changes the equation completely. A single egg contains roughly 186 milligrams of cholesterol, almost your full daily limit if you're following heart-healthy guidelines. When you're younger, your liver works overtime to regulate how much of that cholesterol makes it into your bloodstream. But with age, that process slows down. Your liver doesn't respond to dietary cholesterol the same way. Your arteries aren't as flexible. Your blood doesn't flow as easily. And even a modest increase in cholesterol can cause far more damage than it would have when you were 40. Take George, for instance. He's 71, always considered himself relatively healthy. He's been eating 2 eggs every morning for as long as he can remember. Toast. Coffee. 2 Sunnyside UPS. A routine. But over the last year, his doctor noticed something. His LDL cholesterol, the bad kind, had crept up steadily. His blood pressure was higher. He complained about dizziness, especially when getting up quickly. They ran some scans. Early-stage plaque buildup in the arteries around his heart. No heart attack. Not yet. But the direction was clear. George was shocked. "But I eat well," he said. "I don't touch bacon, I stay away from fried food." And it was true. He wasn't eating junk. But what he was doing was continuing a habit his body could no longer handle the way it once did. That's the trap. The cholesterol in eggs might not be dangerous for a young adult with a flexible cardiovascular system. But for a senior, for someone already dealing with slowed metabolism, blood vessels that have stiffened, and a liver that no longer filters like it used to, it's a different story. One with real consequences. And it's not about fear. It's about recognizing that your body is in a different chapter now. What once nourished it might now be slowly, and invisibly, hurting it. Number 2, silent inflammation from a common breakfast choice. Most people have no idea that eggs are one of the most inflammatory foods for older adults. The reason? It's not just the cholesterol, it's the choline. Choline is a nutrient found abundantly in egg yolks. It plays an important role in brain function and liver health. But here's the catch: after 60, your gut bacteria begin to shift. You have fewer of the helpful strains and more of the ones that produce harmful byproducts. When you eat choline-rich foods like eggs, these gut bacteria convert the choline into a substance called TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide. And this compound? It's strongly linked to inflammation in your arteries and increased risk of heart disease and stroke. Margaret, 73, had always prided herself on eating a clean breakfast. She didn't touch processed food. No sugary cereals. No heavy meats. Every morning, she ate a boiled egg, a piece of whole grain toast, and a cup of tea. But for over a year, she'd been struggling with strange symptoms: stiffness in her joints, a burning sensation in her knees when walking, and an overwhelming sense of fatigue. Her doctors checked for arthritis, lupus, thyroid issues. Nothing explained it. It wasn't until a specialist asked about her diet and ran a TMAO blood test that they uncovered the culprit. Her TMAO levels were unusually high. And the source? Daily egg consumption combined with an aging microbiome. She made one simple switch, swapped her daily egg for a small bowl of chia pudding and berries. Within 2 months, the burning in her joints eased. She walked more easily. Her energy returned. It wasn't a miracle, it was just removing the constant, invisible trigger her body could no longer process. Eggs are not bad. But they become problematic when your gut bacteria change, your inflammation levels rise, and your body begins to respond to what you eat in a completely different way. After 60, inflammation is one of the most silent, destructive forces working inside your body, and it's often fueled by foods you thought were harmless. Number 3, the hidden link between eggs and blood sugar instability. You might not think of eggs and blood sugar in the same sentence. They don't contain sugar. They're low in carbs. Most people assume they're diabetes-friendly. But here's what you need to understand. After 60, blood sugar regulation becomes more delicate. Insulin sensitivity declines. And what used to keep your blood sugar stable might now be quietly throwing it off course. How? The protein and fat in eggs, especially when eaten alone or as the main part of a meal, can interfere with insulin's ability to do its job efficiently. And in older adults, especially those with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, this can lead to longer-lasting blood sugar spikes after eating, even without consuming carbs. Take Norman, 68. He was managing his blood sugar pretty well, or so he thought. His A1C had been hovering near the borderline for years, but nothing alarming. He followed his doctor's advice: cut sugar, limit bread, eat more protein. So he leaned into eggs. Hard-boiled for snacks. Scrambled for lunch. Omelets for dinner. It felt safe. But over time, he noticed his energy dipping in the afternoons. He began waking up groggy, even though he was sleeping through the night. One day, on a whim, he borrowed his wife's glucose monitor and tested himself 2 hours after an egg-based breakfast. His blood sugar was 163, higher than expected, and higher than it should have been considering he hadn't eaten a single carb. What was going on? Recent research suggests that high intake of animal-based proteins and saturated fats, even in the absence of sugar, can impair insulin signaling. It's not just what raises your blood sugar, it's what blocks your body from clearing it efficiently. Eggs, particularly when eaten frequently and in larger amounts, can subtly contribute to this process. Norman made a change. He began pairing smaller portions of egg with more fiber-rich foods, sautéed greens, avocado, beans. Sometimes he skipped the egg altogether. Within a month, his energy stabilized. His midday crashes stopped. And his post-meal readings dropped. Eggs don't have to be completely off limits. But if you're over 60 and dealing with blood sugar issues, or even just unexplained fatigue or brain fog, it's worth rethinking how often they show up on your plate. Your body is giving you signals. It always has been. Sometimes they're loud, like pain or illness. But more often, they're quiet, a drop in energy, a restless night, a strange stiffness that wasn't there before. These signs matter. And what you eat, even something as familiar as an egg, can be the cause. Now, let's keep going. Because the next point? It's one of the most overlooked, yet most dangerous effects of continuing this common habit. Number 4, a silent risk to your gallbladder that few talk about. Most people over 60 don't give much thought to their gallbladder. It's one of those organs that quietly does its job until it doesn't. But here's what many don't realize: as you age, your risk of developing gallstones, bile sludge, and gallbladder disease increases significantly. And eggs, specifically the yolks, can silently aggravate this risk. Egg yolks are high in dietary fat and cholesterol, which stimulate the release of bile from the gallbladder. Normally, that's a good thing. But after 60, your bile production can slow, and your gallbladder might not empty as efficiently. That creates a dangerous setup. Stagnant bile, rich in cholesterol, begins to crystallize. Stones form. The ducts get blocked. And the next thing you know, you are doubled over in pain, or worse, in the hospital facing emergency surgery. Eleanor, 76, had never had digestive issues in her life. She'd always eaten well, stayed active, and considered herself lucky. But last Thanksgiving, she began experiencing sharp pain under her right rib cage after dinner. At first, she thought it was just indigestion. But the pain didn't go away. A few weeks later, it struck again, only this time it radiated to her back and shoulder. She ended up in the ER. Diagnosis? Gallstones. One had become lodged in the bile duct, triggering an infection. The doctor asked her about her diet. Lots of eggs, she said. I eat them most mornings. I thought they were good for me. And they were once. But in a body where bile is sluggish, where the gallbladder no longer contracts as forcefully, that daily egg yolk becomes a repeated trigger. The fat content forces the gallbladder to work harder, but if it's not emptying properly, it simply becomes a breeding ground for stones. Eleanor had her gallbladder removed. She recovered. But she had to adjust her entire diet after the surgery, something that could have been avoided if the warning signs had been caught earlier. Eggs are not the villain. But if you're over 60 and dealing with bloating, discomfort after eating, or a nagging pain near your ribs, don't ignore it. It could be your body's way of telling you that something as small as a daily egg is now doing more harm than good. Number 5, hormonal disruption you didn't see coming. There's something else eggs carry that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: hormones. Not the kind your body makes naturally, but hormones and hormone-like compounds that come from the poultry industry itself. Even when labeled organic or free-range, many eggs come from hens fed a diet that alters the hormonal profile of the egg. And here's where that becomes a serious concern after 60. As we age, our hormone levels shift. For women, estrogen drops dramatically after menopause. For men, testosterone steadily declines. But what often gets overlooked is how delicate that balance becomes, and how easily it can be disrupted by external sources. Eggs contain naturally occurring hormones like progesterone and estradiol, compounds that are fine in moderation, but when consumed daily over time, they can subtly interfere with your own endocrine system. For aging women, that means hot flashes, mood swings, and worsened sleep. For men, it might show up as prostate inflammation, emotional volatility, or loss of libido. Take Harold, 69. A retired engineer, thoughtful, careful about his health. For years he had struggled with restless nights and a kind of emotional flatness he couldn't explain. He assumed it was just aging, part of the package. But after a routine checkup revealed some irregularities in his prostate markers, his doctor began asking more detailed questions. One of the biggest dietary sources of exogenous hormones? Eggs. Harold was skeptical but decided to cut back. Just to see. Within weeks, his sleep improved. His mood lifted. He began waking up with more energy and, unexpectedly, fewer aches in his joints. It wasn't a magic pill. But it was proof that even small hormonal inputs, repeated daily, can create a cumulative effect in a body that's no longer regulating hormones the way it used to. And here's the deeper problem: we often accept hormonal disruption as part of getting older. We blame the mood swings, the fatigue, the sleep issues on just aging. But what if some of it is being worsened, quietly, steadily, by the food on our plate. And what if the daily egg is playing a bigger role than we thought? Number 6. The danger of routine in a changing body. Perhaps the most dangerous part about eggs after 60 isn't what's in them, but the way we consume them. Routinely. Habitually. Without pause. And without adjusting for what our body is becoming. There's a kind of comfort in routine. The egg every morning. The slice of toast. The way the pan sizzles. These are rituals. They make us feel grounded, consistent. But the body you live in today is not the same one you had at 50, or 40, or even last year. As we get older, digestion slows. The stomach produces less acid. Enzymes decrease. Gallbladder function declines. The gut lining becomes more permeable. The body becomes more reactive to food sensitivities, more prone to inflammation, less tolerant of saturated fats. Yet most people never adjust their diet. They keep eating the same way they always have, believing that familiarity equals safety. But routine can be a trap. When your body changes and your habits don't, that's where trouble begins. You might be experiencing joint pain, not from arthritis, but from systemic inflammation triggered by your breakfast. You might be feeling sluggish not because you're tired, but because your body can't efficiently digest the same amount of fat. You might be managing rising blood pressure, rising blood sugar, and wondering why, despite eating clean, your health keeps slowly declining. It's not about fear. It's about awareness. Once, eggs may have been the perfect food. But after 60, your body is asking something different of you. Not necessarily to give them up forever, but to reevaluate. To listen. To recognize that what once sustained you might now be slowly weighing you down. Letting go of a daily egg doesn't mean letting go of joy, or routine, or nourishment. It means responding. Adjusting. Giving your body the respect it deserves in this new chapter of life. Final thoughts. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't about demonizing food. It's about listening, really listening, to what your body is telling you. Because after 60, everything changes. The rules are different. What used to work may no longer serve you. And the consequences of not adjusting can be far more serious than we realize. So the next time you reach for that egg, ask yourself, how is my body responding? Am I feeling more tired, more inflamed, more sluggish than I should? Is there a chance that my routines are keeping me from healing? This isn't about fear. It's about freedom. The freedom to choose differently. The freedom to step out of autopilot and into awareness. To nourish the version of yourself you are today, not the one you used to be. Because you still have so much life left to live. So many mornings still ahead. Let them be vibrant. Let them be strong. Let them be yours. Thank you for spending this time with me. For your openness, your attention, your presence. If this message resonated with you, even just a little, please know you're not alone. We're walking this journey together, every step of the way. Take care of yourself. We'll talk again soon.